Hello everyone and welcome. I'm really happy to welcome my awesome colleague Lotte Pitcher, a developer advocate at Umbraco HQ. She will take us on a journey about kickstart your way to speedy consistency. And she told me just before going on stage that it's for the first time she's doing a talk here. So let's give her a really warm welcome. Maybe a standing ovation. So please.
Yeah, it's the first time I've done something sensible on stage at Codegarden. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Lotte. I this year became a Microsoft MVP. I've been an Umbraco MVP for 7 years, and if you're concentrating, you'll notice I didn't get renewed this morning, but that's for the happy reason that I now work at HQ, as Gabby said, in the developer relations team. So I'm no longer eligible. We're going to talk about .NET new templates today, and this is an alternative slide title, because I think they are a very undervalued tool in a .NET developer's toolkit. They've been around for years, but I still see people writing custom PowerShell scripts that I think a .NET new template could have done the job somewhat easier. You already use them, I hope. If you do .NET new list on your computer, you'll see if you've installed the .NET SDK, you'll see all the ones that Microsoft have given us to create various different .NET websites. Hopefully you've installed Umbraco, in which case you've used .NET new templates, the template that Umbraco have given us. So you do .NET new install Umbraco templates, and when you do that, it tells you that it's installed 3 different templates, and then you can do .NET new Umbraco. So that's how you're creating Umbraco for how Umbraco want you to build Umbraco sites. So how do they work? Spoiler, it's actually quite simple. You have a set of source files and folders, and then some configuration rules, and then when you do .NET new, a template engine runs that takes the source files and folders, does some manipulation of those according to the rules that you define, and spits out the output files and folders. So we're going from files and folders to files and folders. Lucy, you still with me? Good. Great. When might they help you? So there's a little maneuver that I find myself doing quite often, which I like to call the copy, paste, and tweak. So you copy and you paste, and then you do some fiddling around with things to make it work. The other way that you can start new projects is you start from scratch, and you follow the same list of things that you do each time. This is when I would like you to think, would a custom .NET new template help you? Would it stop you doing both of those things? Because we all do similar things in a slightly different way. Don't tell our clients, but we do. So, story time, because all good talks have a story, right? But with a disclaimer that just because I'm going to tell you that you can do something doesn't mean that you should. What I want to do is give you an idea of the things that you can use .NET new templates for, to spark some ideas on how you can use them. But just because I've done something as an example here, as I say, doesn't mean that you should do it. So, story time. Congratulations, you have just got a new job at the Acme Corporation. They have hired you as their new CCO, the Chief Consistency Officer. It is your job to maintain consistency and improve efficiency across all of the Acme Corporation's developer projects. So, day one, let's keep it nice and simple. You realize that they're a bunch of cowboys at the Acme Corporation, and none of their projects have README files. Obviously, you all do README files in all of your projects, so again, this is just hypothetical. So, it's day one, I'm going to create a skeleton README file, and then I'm going to use a .NET new item template to add this to all of the projects. Item templates you use for adding files and folders. Project templates, as your name suggests, you use for creating new projects. So this is the first time we're going to head into the demo video. Excellent, it's moving. So I've created a README file already. This is the skeleton one that's got a nice layout. It's got the sections that I want all the READMEs to have in the projects. I'm going to turn this into a template by creating a folder called template.config and a file in there called template.json. Then the template.json file, we give it this structure. We call it the author, the Acme Corporation. We give it a nice user-friendly name. We need to create a unique identity for the template. Give it a short name, so that's what you'd use when you do your .NET New, and we're going to call this the Acme README. It's an item template. Give it a nice friendly description. And then the classification of README, those just help people find templates. So we've created this JSON file in the specific location in our folder. That's all it takes. We're now going to install it. So we're going to do .NET New install // which says install any template that you find in this folder. And it worked because it spat out the word success. And it's confirming that we have a template that's called Acme README available for us to use. So let's go and test that. So now we can do .NET New Acme README. And let's see what it produced. So at this point, it's a carbon copy. Yeah, that was pretty cool. It's an exact carbon copy of that README. We might as well have done copy and paste. But of course, we'd actually like to change the project name to be specific each time we do it. So source name is the way that we define, here's this phrase Acme README. We would like, when you install the template, to use that instead of the name. Now I have to do I did a force there when I ran it again. Let's just pause this video for a sec. I did .NET New Acme README -- force because I just want to overwrite the test that was rubbish to begin with. And I'm now going to run it again, but this time I'm going to specify a name, because if you don't specify a name, it will use the name of the folder that it's in. So what we're seeing here now, the README which says test1, that's because I'm in a folder called test1. I'm now going to specify an actual name, first test project, when I rerun this test, and now you'll see that the README has been created and it's replaced Acme README with this phrase first test project. So that's what that source name parameter does for you. Right, that was your first day. I said quite a good first day. On your second day, you're having a look at all of Acme's open source projects, and you realize that none of them have good issue templates. That when you have a project in GitHub, if you have YAML files in the right place and someone goes, new issue, you can have a nice laid out questions and answers to try and get people to raise issues in a better way to help your open source project collaborators. So you decide that that's going to be your second day. And this involves folders and files this time, not just a single file. So we're going to create a new template. And this is an example of the structure you need. You need a .github folder and an issue template folder. And then inside there, you've got some lovely YAML files. And again, it's just text. We're calling this template Acme issue templates, so we've used that as our source name in this file, and that's which we want that to be replaced with the name of the project when we run it. So I'm not actually, oh, I need to create the template. Yep, forgot that step. Thank you, video. Create a folder called template.config, create template.json. We're going to get used to this little technique. We're going to give it the name of Acme issue templates. I regret the name Acme. I find it very hard to say, which, considering how many times I'm going to be saying it today, is unfortunate. But there we go. Short name of Acme issue templates, and leave the rest blank. And we're going to say the source name is Acme issue template. So yes, that's the phrase that's going to get replaced when we run this template. Now, I'm not actually just going to install this as a new template. What I'm going to do is I'm going to uninstall the one that I installed previously. And to know how to uninstall something, if you do .NET New uninstall, it'll tell you the uninstall commands for all of the ones that you've installed yourself. So I'm going to uninstall our first template, because what I want to do is go up to our templates folder, and I'm going to install from there, because that single install command, the level above, will then install any template that it finds anywhere beneath there. So as you can see now, it says success, and it's now installed 2 separate templates because we have 2 .template configs with valid template JSON files underneath. So it saves time having multiple templates in one. As you notice, Umbraco has 3 templates in the one group that you install. So now we're going to do another test. .NET new list Acme, which will just tell me what are the templates installed that have the word Acme in. So that's just reassuring to see that we've got 2 templates listed there. And now we're going to actually run our Acme issue template using second test project. So let's go and see what it's created. It's created a .github folder for us. It's created the issue template folder. And in the bug.yaml file, it's used the name that we provided when we ran the install command and replaced it. So a nice, gentle way to start our new job. I don't know what happened for the rest of the week. I'm now on the 2nd week. I think I took some time to understand how they work with Umbraco, and I realized that they do lots of things in the same way, but they always start from scratch each time. And it means that people do things slightly differently, takes time. And I thought, well, you know what, I want to impress the CEO, so I'm going to create a new starting position for everyone to start using. So I'm going to create a .NET new project template. Now, I've called this Acme Umbraco Starter. Again, too long. It's going to annoy me as I keep mispronouncing it as I demo this. But just to show you what's in there, it's called Acme Umbraco Starter. There's a CS proj. It's an Umbraco 14 site, of course. We have a hijack controller in there. We've got views using custom view models. It is a working website, and I'm just going to prove that to you, first of all, .NET New Run, to prove that what I'm working with here in a template is a working project that compiles, that runs. It doesn't look particularly exciting. My CSS is better than that, I can say. But just proving it works, we've got some content in there, and in the settings section, you'll see that Models Builder is configured to use source code manual, because that's how I like to work, in a custom namespace. So that's our Umbraco starting position. I would just say it doesn't matter what's in that starting position. This is not a hill I'm dying on. It's up to you what your position is. I'm saying once you've worked out how you like building your sites, this is a way to then be consistent and start all new projects in the same way. So guess what? We create a folder called .templates.config, and we create in there a file called template.json. And this time I'm going to copy in a bit more of a head start, because we'll get bored otherwise. We're going to call it type of project, because that's the type it is, and source name of Acme Umbraco Starter. And then there's one extra property that we're going to say it's language C#. Yeah, thank you. Then there's one extra property that I'm going to add called prefer name directory true, which means that it will create a folder with the name that you provide and then put the assets inside that when it runs. So I've just stopped the website running. Little hint there, don't try and use a template that's a running website. That will cause problems. So now we can run our new template. Does it exist at this point? Let's find out. .NET new list Acme, yes, because I've installed locally from that folder, it keeps looking at that folder. Because we've just added a new template in there, we don't have to reinstall. It appears to be there automatically. So .NET new Umbraco, Acme Umbraco Starter, with the name third test project. That's run. It's just created our new site, and you can see we've got a folder now called third test project. And as you'd hope, in the controller, the namespace is now as you'd want it to be with third test project. In the view, it's changed the using at the top of the view, and the CS proj file has been renamed. So that is a working Umbraco starting position, but it's not quite enough. We do need to do a bit more work to make it fit for purpose. And first of all, because we're good people, we care about the telemetry GUID that we use in our Umbraco sites, because, because it wouldn't be very... I actually made this mistake when I released an opinionated package starter template. The test site had all the same GUIDs in there, because telemetry GUIDs, sorry for anyone who tracks that. I fixed it in release 2, it's fine. So there's a GUIDs array that you can add to your template.json file, and in there you specify any GUIDs in your source project that you would like new GUIDs to be created when the template engine runs. And what it does for every instance of a GUID that it finds, it creates a new GUID, but it will replace it consistently. So if this GUID had been used in 5 places, all 5 places would be updated with the same new one. It will also honor the formatting and casing of your GUIDs as well. And that shouldn't have happened, so let's just run that video again, because I pressed the wrong button. Excellent. GUIDs, we were talking about GUIDs. And then we're going to talk about sources. So the sources array that I will highlight in a moment in this pre-recorded demo. There we go. Sources array is what you use to control the structure of the output. So you can rename files, rename folders, and you can exclude files and folders. Now, we don't want our Umbraco data file or our Umbraco logs file or even our .vs folder, sorry, all those folders. We don't want those to be taken from our source and put in our new Umbraco site that we're creating. We want those to be ignored by the template engine. So we add them to this exclude inside the modifiers parameter in the sources array. You may notice I haven't put bin in there or obj. The template engine does that by default. So it's just your custom folders that you want it to ignore. And as I say, you might, let's say, have a README that you want in your project, but it needs to be a different one. You can rename files and things like that. You can modify the structure as you need. And I've done that again. Excellent work, Lotte. Am I in the right place? Yes. I can't fast forward, so I'm really going to try not to do this thing again. GUIDs, we've all got GUIDs. Do we understand GUIDs? Yes, I think we understand GUIDs. Sources array, excellent. I'm going to put one hand behind my back, so hopefully I don't mess it up. Right, symbols we're going to talk about now. The symbols array is how you define variables and values. And when you have an Umbraco website, or any website, in fact, your launch settings.json file has 2 port numbers in, your local host HTTP and your HTTPS that you use in development. Now, we don't want all of our sites to be created with the same port numbers. So what we want is when the template engine runs, we want to generate a new port number for the source, for the output, sorry. So there is a type of symbol called generated. So that's what we're using here. You can see it on line 33 and on line 42. It's a generated parameter, and we're going to use a generator inbuilt called port. There are various other ones. There's now, which can use the current date time, and some other ones to strings and things. Depending on which generator you use, you might want to pass extra arguments. So for this port generator, you can say a low number and a high number, and then you have to specify the value in your source that it's going to replace. So for us, it's 4505. And the HTTPS one as well. So when the template engine runs and it finds those numbers, it's going to generate a new port number for us according to the rules that we've set here. So that video might have proved that it worked, but I'm not going to run it for a 4th time. Note to self, split videos up more. Excellent. So let's just ask, can you make things more configurable? Well, yes. Yes, you can. Oh, good, it's another video that I have to pause. So the example I thought of this was the delivery API. So it might be that you want to, when you run your new starting position, you know you want to use the delivery API. You just want to be able to say that when you use your template. So we are going to use a symbol type of parameter this time. So in the symbols array, when my cursor goes in the right place, thank you very much. I've added a parameter called delivery API. It's a Boolean data type. You can have a string, you can have int, float, and you specify a default value so that if the user doesn't specify this when they do their .NET new command, it will have the default value. And in this example, we're going with false. So that's a parameter that we're setting called delivery API. Oh, didn't swear. That was... Note to self, yes. Huh? Oh yeah, just don't touch anything. And right, excellent. Delivery API is in there. It's going so well. Right, yes, good. Now, one very important thing when you add parameters is you have to reinstall. And I'm going to use the .h switch to ask .NET what parameters I have in this template. And as you'll see, it says no, none at the bottom, no options. So I need to force the reinstall of my templates. So // to do it from the local directory, force. It's reinstalling the templates. Now when I do -h again, it should confirm that it now recognizes that parameter of delivery API. Now, all we've done here is added the parameter. What do we actually need to change in our template if we want to enable the delivery API? Well, as you all know, that's going to app-settings.json and adding a new setting in the Umbraco CMS section called delivery API, enabled, and you change that to true if you wanted the delivery API. Now, we don't want it on by default, so we set that back to false. No offense, headless, but we don't do it all the time. So we're going to leave that as enabled false, and we're going to use a feature called post actions, which run after the template engine has run and it's generated the output files. You can then tell it, when you've done that, please now do some more work. And there is a post action that you can use for adding a JSON parameter to a file. And I misspelled the word enable there, and it really frustrated me, but I wasn't going to re-record the video when I realized. We specify the action ID, and that's a special GUID that's in the Microsoft documentation, and that stands for add a JSON parameter. Then you specify the arguments that are relevant for this action. So you specify the JSON file name, so that's app-settings.json. And then you specify where in that JSON file this parameter needs to be added. And so Umbraco :CMS :delivery API. If that doesn't exist in your JSON file, it will fall over. However, when you're saying new JSON property name, and this one we're going to use enabled, it will either add the property if it doesn't exist, or it will change the value if that already exists. So in our source, we already put delivery API enabled false, but here we're saying set it to true. The key thing is only if we said delivery API. So only if the user, when they call .NET New, says, yes, I want the delivery API, will that post action run. Now, because I'm a negative tester, or however I should pronounce it, I'm going to run this now without passing the delivery API switch, just to prove that it doesn't run, because that's just how I test. And I really want to get up to a high number of tests by the time we get to the end of this video, the end of this talk. So we've run it as we did before, and it still says enabled false, because that's how it is in our source. So it's exciting, I know, everyone. We're going to run it again, and this time pass the delivery API switch at the same time when I can spell it. So this time, it's confirming that it has indeed run those post-creation actions. If you don't see that note, it means something's gone wrong if you're expecting them. And it says enable true. Thank you. Isn't that wonderful? Bless. Now, this really is just so I can put a photo of a dog. But my favorite post action, because I do have a favorite, as you all will once you start working with .NET New templates. And interesting you smile, Kevin, because it is for usync. Because what really annoys me, not about usync, I love usync, obviously, is when I forget to switch export on save to be only settings in my client projects. Because in our template, we want to be persisting content and media to the template, because we want to use that in our starting sites. but I don't want to be committing content and media, and it really annoys me when it appears in Git because I forgot to add that setting. So that's why this is my favorite post action, because I've added a post action to set the usync settings export on save property to be settings, which means settings only. I mean, I might say to Kevin, why don't we change the default? But I understand it's called breaking change, and so post action. If anyone says that to you, Kevin, just say, just do a post action. Yeah. Anyway, so that's why it's my favorite, because I always forget, and so I do it in the template. Something else we can do is be more friendly and use what's called a derived symbol. So in our README, if you remember that first day one success that we had, we generated a markdown file which said first test project in, because that was the name that we used when we ran the template. It would be nice if there were spaces in between the words first and test and project, and we can use that using a derived symbol. Now this is using, we add something, I really can't find a good way to explain it, so just watch for a minute what I add. It's called forms, and I don't really understand. Someone will tell me afterwards why it's called forms, but I haven't worked it out in my head. We need a forms array, and we're defining a thing that we're calling Pascal case to spaces that's going to replace what we're asking it to replace with a magic bit of regex, which we all know is magic anyway. So we're defining a parameter here that's called friendly site name, and what we're saying is it's a derived parameter, derived symbol. We want you to, the value source is set to name, so whatever we use as the name when we call .NET New, we want to replace that using this Pascal case to spaces form thing that we've defined in our JSON file. Now, I'm just reminding you that this is what we had, and so if we change this to the phrase friendly site name, because that's what we put in our JSON file saying that we want to replace that phrase friendly site name, when we run our template, when we run our test, we are hoping then that instead of getting, I can't remember what I used. I think for some reason I went my test project at this point rather than 7th test project. Yeah, my test project. My new project. There we go. Well done, Lotte. Let's look at the output. And now you see it says my new project because it's taken that friendly site name phrase and it's used our name and it's run it through this formatting thing. Do you think that's why it's called forms? I don't know. As I say, please tell me afterwards. So that's kind of where I get to in the Umbraco starting places that I've built and that I've seen other people doing. There are so many things that you can do, but time. So I'm going to talk about sharing with others. So you've already seen how I've been working. If you want to do it an easy way, your developers clone your template repository and install from the local folder, and then as long as their clone is up to date, they'll be using the latest version of the templates, probably do a force install. Or you could install, publish to a private NuGet feed if you have one of those in your company. Perhaps you're going to build something that you think other people in the Umbraco community would benefit from. Well, then you can share it, share a starter kit. And I think that this approach, .NET New Templates, is far better for starter kits than the traditional way of packages, because if you release your way of working as a package, you're releasing compiled C#. It's not very easy for whoever's using the code to see what's there. If you built view models, they won't be able to see those. They won't be able to change them. Whereas if you release it as a template, you're giving them the raw C#, so they can go and change it as they need to. I don't think you don't need to know that this site was built from this starting position. The whole point is here's a place to start from. Now go do what you want to do. It's not like baseline and clouds where you want to have the fact that you've always got that link back to where you came. The whole point of .NET New Templates is that once you've run that .NET New command, that's it. There's nothing, if you go and change your source template, there's nothing that's going to change in your output. Maybe that's not what you want, but generally, I do. And the template is a normal website, so it's easier to maintain than it is a package. To share it with the world, which obviously we'd love you to do, you can list it on the marketplace. There is now a type of package on the marketplace that is called template. And then I was going to link to some docs to tell you how to do that, but it appears that there aren't any. So anyone who knows how to do that, wonderful contribution opportunity ahead for you. And as I say, there is much more to this than I could possibly cover. This is the list of post actions, possibly the least user-friendly thing you're going to do, because you have to go to the docs and find the GUID relating to the post action. But these are the ones that are supported at the moment. You can restore NuGet packages, you can run a script. We've done the bottom one of adding a property to the existing JSON file. You can display manual instructions. I love the idea of that. You're going to just spit out loads of text to tell your person who's run the template, now do this. Sure, why not? This is an example of the restore NuGet post action. You would need to define your primary outputs because the NuGet restore needs to know which project it is, or projects, you can have multiple ones, that you want it to run .NET restore for. Just so you know, if that skip restore parameter hadn't been defined, that whole post action would fail, and that's something I've learnt from copying it from someone else and not defining the skip restore parameter and then wondering, why didn't my post action work? So there's a little hint. You can use preprocessor directives to include or exclude bits of C# in your code and other languages. It's just in other languages it's not quite as friendly because we're used to preprocessor directives in C#. If you were wanting to enable the delivery API in version 12, you would also need to add the add delivery API bit of C# in your startup code. We don't need to do that anymore, so that's kind of ruined my demo. Thanks, Umbraco. But anyway, you could wrap an if-end-if preprocessor directive around the C#, and then it would only get put in the output if that parameter was true. And of course, it removes the #if, #end-if statements, so those wouldn't be there in your output. You can customize parameters, so you might decide that your -- delivery API or the short name -de, which is what it is by default, isn't what you want. So you can create a .NET CLI host JSON file, and we're going to decide to change the short name to be dappy because it sounds fun. And then reinstalling the template, of course, then you can use -dapi. There are other things you can do. Multiple projects in a template. You can use a post action, of course, to script files, run other .NET new commands, to run anything that you can do in a script file. If you have a consistent way of working, I kind of think you could use an item template to create a hijack controller and an accompanying view model that does all the stuff for you, so it's all set up. If you have a consistent way of working so that you know that you're going to have a folder called controllers and a folder, well, you always have a folder called views, but you know what I mean. So that's a benefit of always starting your projects in the same way, that maybe there might be some item templates that will fast forward your development processes. I think there is sometimes a use for just doing a one-off template that is literally going to be used once, and I'm hoping that we're going to find a use for that at Umbraco. We're working on a new .com. I'm told it's not a secret. We're working on a new .com, and very soon we're going to get to a point where we're going to take a copy of that and create a start of a new community website. And we don't want to be tied to each other because different teams are going to work on it, and we're going to have very different reasons. That, the site's going to be very different. But what we're building for .com is exactly what the community site needs as well. So I think we're going to use a .NET new template. It's my job post-Codegarden to work out whether that will work, and if it does, I will write a blog about it. If I don't blog, it didn't work, and you'll never hear about it again. Time to wrap it up. Yep. Just to remind you some key facts, because that's what you should do at the end of a talk. Your template source is nothing special. You don't need to add any tokens. You can still run it, test it, debug it. It isn't just for .NET projects. That README file that we used in the first template was just a markdown file. It can be DevOps scripts, it can be documentation, it can be any files. Check out the Microsoft documentation, it's very good. It's open source, so if there's a post action that you really want, I wouldn't know how you go about building it, but sure, have a go. And I'd really just like us to all stop doing things over and over again and to free up your brain. So hopefully, I'm going to save you some time. Maintain consistency. It's why Acme Corporation employed me, after all. And enable you to share with the world some of your good ideas. So over to you. Roller skates are optional. Thank you very much.